Hey everyone, this is Tech Urvashi. Welcome to AI Automation Real World Project Development Bootcamp. All right, so before we start, let me share my screen. And of course, if you guys have, like I always say, if you guys have any questions related to MERN or Gen AI, just feel free to put it in the comment section. So if you're joining right now, or even if you are going to see it later, then also you can just put it in the comment section. All right. I hope my screen is visible to all. Yeah, it's visible. Okay. So today's session is interesting in terms of building an app. Okay. Instead of building boring CRUD applications, so we are going to build a real application in terms of Gen AI. Okay. So and in fact, if you guys have attended my live last week, I think on weekend I did it. So you must have seen that I talked about GenAI user and GenAI builder. Okay, so today you guys will actually get a perspective what I meant by AI builder. Okay, and what is needed or required by AI engineers. And of course, it's one part of it. Again, I just want to be very clear about it. It's just one part. Of course, in AI also you have so many, like you can build AI agents, agentic AI. So many fields are there. So we are going to see it with the perspective of GenAI integrations today. Okay, and of course we are going to do integrations with the MERN stack. All right, so before we start, okay, I'll give you guys a quick idea what we are going to build today. Okay, so we are going to build a I won't even say mini, but it's a good project. You can literally go and use it in your resume. You can enhance it and add your own features on the top of it. Okay, so it's a great project for your resume that you guys can build with me today. Okay, so to begin with, so firstly, the tech stack that I'm going to use is Burn Stack, okay, plus GenAI. Okay, I know the name of the live is Build a AI automation project. Of course, it's an automated project only, okay. But the tech stack that I'm going to use is this. Okay, I'm just being being very clear, telling you guys what we are going to use, what we are not going to use. Okay, so before we actually deep dive into development part, then after that, next thing that we will have is okay. So now it's divided into two parts. We know if you are and one more thing, if you are someone who is new to MERN, then you won't be, you can see this live, of course, but then you won't be able to understand in depth of MERN. Like I'm not going into MERN today. I will be developing only the Gen AI part of it. And like, of course, Node will be used in that, Express will be used in that. But I hope you are aware of, MERN stack. That is what I want to mention here. Okay. So firstly, we'll be building front end. Okay, and backend. Okay, and the topic that I've picked today is actually a interview prep builder. Okay, interview interview prep questions builder. Okay, so this is what we are going to build, and these questions are not going to be pre-populated in your databases. In fact, these questions are going to come from AI. Okay, so how we are going to build is simply that I'll just give you guys a gist what app is about. Okay, so user will enter the like the field, okay, like a role, like let's say they want to prepare for front end developer, they want to prepare for back end developer or DevOps engineer, AI engineer, and then they will mention the tech stack. Okay, they will mention the tech stack. Let's say in front end I'll pick React, in front end pick Angular JS, or I'll pick, let's say, Next.js. Okay, and then they will just simply do search, and these questions for this tech stack will come automatically from AI. So that is the part where we are actually going to integrate, or this is the part where we are actually going to include Gen AI, okay, for creating these questions, which will come from AI. Okay, and for AI API, I'm going to use Gemini. Okay, you guys can use anything. You can use OpenAI APIs are not free, and like so, I generally use Gemini API only. Okay, I'll tell you how to get the key and everything, and you guys can use Grok API as well. Okay, so this is what we're going to use today. Okay, and in front end, of course, React, and of course, backend Express, Node.js, and Mongo. Okay, that is what we're going to use. Now, to begin with, firstly, we'll develop our backend. Okay, so we'll develop our backend API. Okay, so for development part, okay, we are going to develop our backend first, and then we are going to develop, of course, we are going to integrate the backend API that we are going to create inside the front end. Okay, so that is what we are going to do. So let's start. So I'll just open here VS Code, and again I want to mention, I hope you guys are, if you're someone who is watching this, you're familiar with Burn Stack. Okay, that is extremely needed because I'm not going into teaching what is MERN, what is Node, what is Express. Okay, I'm going to deep dive into AI part of it. Okay, like how can you develop backend with AI APIs? That is what. And of course, I hope you guys got the idea. Like these questions and everything, nothing is going to be there in my database. It's all going to come from your Gemini AI API. Okay, that is how it's going to be. So now, first of all, this is the configuration. Okay, I've just everything I'm going to develop right in front of you. Just the installations I've done pre-structure, and of course, if you are someone who is watching it from my if you have seen my previous live, you know the drill. I already have kept everything like this AI interview generator, the app that we are going to build today. Everything is already inside this document, which I'll be sharing in the end of this session. Okay, so you guys can go through this document. And whatever I'm speaking, whatever installations, everything you need, it's all going to be present here. Okay, so this document and today's code, GitHub. So I'll be putting this code on GitHub. I'll be giving you this code and this document in my WhatsApp community channel, so you guys can join. That's in the description. Okay. All right. Now let's see. So in backend, I've just done the installations. Okay, just I'll tell you guys what you need to install in backend. Okay, first of all, you need to install .env. Okay, then you need to install Express.js because I hope everyone, you guys know, there's a difference of working with Express server and Node server. Okay, then we will be using Express server. Then after that, you guys, if you are going to integrate MongoDB, then install MongoDB. Okay, in today's session, I'm not going to include MongoDB. But because it's a 1 hour session only, so I can't keep too many things. I want to keep it around AI Gen AI part. But yeah, you guys can install MongoDB if you're going to use MongoDB part as well. Okay, then you need to install cores, right? Because our frontend will be deployed on a different server. It's going to run on a different server, and my backend is going to run on a different server. To exchange the data between two servers, we need to enable this cores, right? That's why we need this as one of the middlewares. Of course, we are going to install NodeMon. Okay, NodeMon is needed so that if I'm running my Node.js app, it's going to run consecutively. Okay, so it's not like if I'm changing something in my code, I don't have to rerun it. So that's why we'll be installing NodeMon. And for Google, okay, for Google, this you can install Google Gen AI. Okay, so nowadays, just to give you guys a perspective, whenever you have to work with Gen AI, okay, if you have seen my earlier live also, there are a lot of terms I've mentioned, like I mentioned about LangChain, LangGraph, right, RAG, vector databases. So similarly, if you want to work with integrate or use Gemini API in your backend, you don't have to do something extra. There are already packages for that. Like Google Gemini is one of the package for that. Okay, so we can just simply go with this. Ankit, I think Ankit is someone who is saying मुझे Python पढ़ना है. Okay. Okay. So today we are focusing on this, but let's see. Maybe I'll introduce some course on YouTube Live for Python. Okay, we'll see. All right. And for front end, of course, we are going to use React. Okay, plus Tailwind. So only the front end or Tailwind code I've kept pre-structured because I didn't want it to spend time on writing CSS because that is something you guys can also do with Tailwind CSS. Okay, integration is what I'll be teaching you guys here. Integration part is what I'll do. The API that we are going to develop, how to integrate in our front end, that is what I'm going to teach you guys. Okay. All right. Now coming back to this, so here we have a script. We have this start. I have added NodeMon, so our server is going to run on this uh, NodeMon. Okay, so before this, let's create the server on which it is going to run. Okay, and these are the installations, like I just mentioned. This is something I've already installed. Okay, so now we know in backend we have our node modules. Okay, we have our package.json and package.json. Okay, so here I'm going to create a new file called server.js. Okay, so inside this server.js file, we are going to firstly create a simple Express server, and inside that Express server, we are going to develop our AI API. Like we'll be using Gemini API to create our own API inside that. Okay. So I'll just do import Express from Express. Okay, and I hope you guys are aware that if you're using ES6 syntax or JavaScript, then you guys have to include type module. If you're using older ES5 version like this, like const express is equal to require, if you guys are going to use this, okay, then you have to remove this code. Okay, so I'm not sure which syntax you guys use, ES6 or ES5. So if you're using ES5, so make sure you remove this in this code. If you use ES6, then it is good to go. Okay, type module. So I'll create a simple server. I'll say const app is equal to express. Okay, and I'm going to say app.listen. So you guys can define the port number. We know if you want to define a port number, we do all of it inside our env file. So I'm going to create one env file now. Okay, inside this env file, we'll be keeping two things. Okay, one is my port number. Okay, that I'll say this will run on 5000. Okay, and next thing that I'm going to keep is my API key. Okay, now Gemini API key I'll extract in the end. Okay, from the website is equal to some API key will come here. Okay. Now this API key will get it from our Gemini API website. Okay. All right. Now app.listen, it's going to listen on this port number. Okay. So here I can just mention here const port is equal to, okay, I'll say process. This is how you get the values from env file, right? Port, or I'll say if this port is there, otherwise I'll say 5000. Okay, it's like just make sure that the port will come properly. I'll pass the port number, a callback function, okay, and I'll say console.log of backend server is running on port number this. Okay, so whichever port number it's running on, it's going to come here. So I will have my server.js file over here. Okay, now inside this server.js file, server is running. Okay, let's run this. Npm start. I hope it's clear why npm start, because I've already mentioned in my package.json file that on npm start do node mon server.js. Okay, I've typed it wrong. Okay. So you guys can see my server is running. Okay, so at least we were able to create a simple server. Okay. Now we know one thing, that we need to include some middleware. So all the response, everything we will be handling through JSON. Okay. So we need to include some middlewares. Okay. So what we are going to do is also to we have to write .env. So we install this .env. Okay. So I'll be putting this here. So all the env files that we, all the env file variables, environmental variables that we use. Okay. So it's all going to come. So we are going to import that as well. .env, so that they come properly. .env from .env. Okay, so why we have to do this config over here, so that all the variables configuration is done. Okay, and to load your environmental variables properly. Okay, that's why we have to include this, and that is the reason, I hope you know, that we installed .env for this only, to use variables from environmental file. Okay. All right. So now environmental variables will be loaded here. Okay. We already have this over here. Okay. Now after this, we are going to include some middleware. Okay. Always we know, if you work with web development, then middlewares are going to be, a lot of middleware we need. Okay. Middleware is like a piece of code you need to run between your request and before your response is sent, right? That's your middleware in Express.js. Now, there are a lot of middleware, like, Express cannot understand if a response is coming in JSON format, right? So to understand that, we have to use app.use express.json, okay? And similarly, like if your code, data is coming in URL encoded format, so for that also you have to define the uh, middleware. Okay, and also I mentioned one thing, pores. Okay, why we need pores? Because my front end will be running on localhost. Let's say I'll run it on localhost 5173. Okay, and this will be running on a different server, let's say 5000, right? To exchange the data between these two different servers, we need this pores, right? That's why we are adding it, and also I'll import it from pores. From pores. Okay. All right. So I'm using all ES6 syntax today. Okay. Of course, you guys can use ES5 also. Just make changes here. All right. So this is also done. Okay. Now next the main part comes are creating our API. Okay. Now you will see from front end, like I said, the app that we are building, two things are going to come as input. Okay. One is the role and one is the text type. Okay. So you can imagine when I'm doing request from client, I'll draw a quick diagram. I'll do a request from the client. So a request will be made from the client, and our application is running. This is my server. This is my server. Okay, so what we are doing, we are developing some API over here. This is what we are trying to do, where we are trying to integrate Gemini API. Okay, so we are going to make a request from the client. Okay, we are going to make a request. So we are going to make a post request. Okay, we're going to post some data, and what inputs will come. So I am telling you guys, the input that is going to come is going to be the role. Role is going to come. Okay, inside this, so in body we'll get role, plus we'll get some values like what is the tech stack. Okay, these type of values are going to come from the client. Okay, so these are the values, two values. This is my requirement, that these two will come from the client, and then you have to do, plus you have to develop your API here, plus you have to do Gemini integration to get the data that you want. Okay, and then you have to send it as a response. Okay, so right now we are on this position. Okay, and I'm telling you guys that we are building today, the request, in the request, post request, you will get role and text stack. Okay, so based on that, we are going to process our API. Okay, now since we are going to use Gemini API today, okay, so if you want to use Gemini API, so you guys can see I've already installed Google Gemini. You can see this is what you need to install. Now this package that we have installed, it gives you a lot of SDKs. Okay, so it will give you a lot of SDK like Google Gemini. Okay, and then it will give you type. So this will come from your Google Gemini. Okay, so this is the best part nowadays if you want to use, and it applies to all. You are doing mobile development, you're doing web development, right? You get the privilege of using this predefined packages. Even if you work with OpenAI, you have this at the rate or the company name, and the OpenAI is here. Okay, if you have Grok APIs, for that also there is a NPM package. Okay, so you just need to install, and then you have access to all the SDKs. Okay, now when I say SDKs, okay, now we have to develop a API. Okay, the SDK part. So what we will do, firstly we'll say initialize the Google SDK. Okay, because we are going to use Gemini API. Okay, so I'll say const AI is equal to. So will create an object out of it. I'll say Google Gemini. Okay, and here we will pass our API key. Okay, now API key is present where? API key is inside my env file. Okay, in the end I'll insert the API key here, but for now I'll just say, so I'm assuming the API key is present there, env dot API key. Okay, so this API key is going to come here. What is the name? Okay, one second. I'll copy the name of the variable. Okay, so you can see that key will come. Okay, so in future, based on my environment, we know the reason of creating env file. Based on, let's say I'm working on test environment, development environment, production environment, I just need to come and change my keys here. Okay, so this is how you initialize your SDK. Okay. All right. Now what we are going to do is we are going to create the API. Okay. So for creating a request, we know we in Express.js we have predefined HTTP methods coming from this app. Okay. So this Express gives us that. So I can, and like I said, it will be a post request. Okay. Okay. Someone is asking, "Ma'am, aap kahan se ho?" Guys, I'm from the northern part of India. Okay. I mean, from India, but north part of it. Okay. So this is the API I'm going to create. Okay. Let's say generate. So you guys can give any name. Let's say generate, prep, generate interview, whatever the API name you want, whatever the route you want to give, you can give that. Okay. Comma, a callback function will be called, and we know this callback takes two things. One is request and one is response. Okay. So these are the two things it takes. Now inside this, I'm assuming two things are going to come. Like I said, one is a role and one is the text stack. Okay, so I'm telling you guys that these are the two things will come from the client when I'll be integrating this API, and these two inputs will take from the user. Okay, role and the text. So I'll do error handling. I'll say const. So I said two things will come, right? So I know whatever comes from the client, it comes in the body. Okay, request or body. So I'll get these two things. One will be the role and one will be the text stack. I'll use camel casing. So this is how it's going to come. Okay. Now here we'll do some basic validation. Of course, whenever we build API, you should do proper validation. Okay. So I'll do some basic validations for now. Okay. For example, if the role is not present, okay, or if the text tag is not present, anything is not present, okay, then I'll send response what return response dot send status. Okay, means there is a issue, because if the data is not coming from the client, the issue is with the client, right? So we'll send this error. Okay, let's say error message colon role and text tag is required. So when I'll integrate this API in my client, so if genuinely these two data are not coming, I'll get this error over there. Okay, I'll get that error over there. Okay, so this is what we'll get here, first of all. Okay. Now, next thing is, let's say the data are coming, let's assume. Okay. Now, what I'll do here, I'll be creating my API over here. Like I'll be passing the data. Okay, now how to use Gemini? Now, that is the main part. How I will use Gemini API. Okay, so now what is happening from the client? Two things are coming: role and text tag. Okay, so I am saying role is coming, okay, and text stack is coming. Then I'm saying here, okay, these two things are coming. Now I have to pass these to Gemini. Just like when you give any prompt to Gemini API, or you give prompt to any AI tool that you work with, right? Chat GPT, Codex, Chat GPT, or you work with Copilot, or you work with Gemini, right? So you give the, let's say these are the two inputs that I want to give to this. Plus I want to give one more input, the prompt, right? Because prompt is also important, right? Because basically you have to tell your a Gemini API, right, what I need as a result. So whatever response will come, like I said, whatever response Gemini will give me, I'll send it in the client. I will send it in the front, and those are nothing but questions that I want, question and answers. Okay. So now these two inputs I will get from the client, like you can see. But there is one more thing I need, that's called prompt, because that is the prompt we'll send to Gemini API. Okay, and then Gemini API will give you a response, or I'll say response. And once I'll get this response, okay, that I will send to my client, right? So you guys have to craft a prompt. Now to craft a prompt, again, I'll suggest you can use some AI tool again, okay? So I'll be writing one prompt today, okay, just to give you guys an idea, okay? But one thing that I really want to mention here, considering this uh, AI, this response over here, okay, that here this prompt you guys can craft it on your own, or you can just get it from AI tool. Okay, you guys can just get it from some AI tool, that will also work. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm just going to draft this prompt right now. Let's say act as a senior engineering. Okay, now this is a interview prep material that we're trying to extract questions, right? So I'll just say conducting technical interviews. Okay. Now generate. Now you guys can define how many questions you want to generate. Generate exactly three advanced. You guys can, like, you can just go and make the change in this prompt later on. Okay, let's say I'll extract three questions, interview questions on that very topic that user will ask. Okay, for a role. Okay, for a role. Now role is what coming from, it's coming from the client. Okay, so now what I need to do is I need to use backticks here. Okay, and so that I can just do variable and expression substitution. I'll say role. Okay, focusing on the tech stack that will also come from the client. Okay, okay, and then I'll say for each question provide the core concept, okay, being tested, and brief framework for the ideal answer. Okay, now in interview, if I talk about, because I do training for the students, okay, and then I help them with the prep part. Okay, these are the two things I do. So training and then preparing candidates for the interview. Okay, nationally, internationally, both. So like recently, I'm doing trainings for US based students. Okay, so one thing that I've noticed that, or even I take interviews for the IT companies. So these are the three things which is important in any interview, right? One is your the explanation that you understood about the topic. Then second thing is the syntax, and third part is where you apply it, like a real time application, like wherein you apply that concept in real time. Okay, so these are the three things that matter. So why am I mentioning this point is that based on that you can change your prompt. Okay, because it's your application. You guys, like, I'll give you guys that leverage. So for now, I'm building, I created this prompt, I passed this role and text type, but of course you guys can go ahead and make change to this prompt as per your will. So accordingly, Gemini AI will give you the result. Okay, and now whatever response, now we will do a Gemini API call. Okay, so this is, so till now what I was doing, I was creating my post request. This request will be coming from the client. Then we will extract the this role and the text tag. Then I'll crafted a prompt. And I told you we need three things. Once we have these three things, role, text tag, and prompt, now we are good to go to send it to the Gemini API. Okay, so now we will be doing the calling part. Okay, so now what we'll do, so what we need to do is, so I'll say AI that we created, the initialization of the SDK. I'll say AI. So whatever I'm writing, to be honest, you'll get this on their website also. Okay, so whenever you have to generate some content, because that is what I want to generate, right? So you guys can literally go to Gemini website today and you can see whatever I'm writing, it's all going coming from here. Okay, in the end, I'll show you as well. So which model I want to use, I'll be using Gemini. Okay, you can select the model. And guys, one more thing, whatever AI API you work with, okay, it's going to be same. Like if you work with OpenAI, also you'll have the same, like what content, same structure. You will be passing prompt there also. You'll be mentioning the model there also. Okay, so few things are like similar, whichever AI API you integrate. Of course, there will be different methods inside that. Okay, but the structure would be same, like model, content, okay, and what configurations you want. So all these things would be same, even if you use any other API. Okay, now what is happening here? The response that I will get. Okay, I will define a configuration for that. Okay, because if you use normal Gemini API, also you use, right, any AI tool you use, the response will come uh, as per what you ask. Okay, but now here the response that I want, that is what you mentioned. Let's say you want to generate an image, you want to generate a video, or you want to generate, let's say, some reading material, guided material, right? So based on that, you select. Now, what I'm saying here is that the response that I want for this very call that I'm going to do to Gemini AI API, I want it to be in a JSON format. Okay, so I'm restricting. So whenever you have to restrict what response you want in your code as well, you can just do configuration for that. Okay, so you can just do configurations for that. Okay, so now what I'm going to do here is I'm going to define the configuration for the same. Okay, I think there is some bracket issue, I guess. I'm getting, okay, the issues of cache. Okay, so that's why we are doing this configuration. Okay, we are just forcing strict JSON format. Okay, I want JSON format only from the Gemini API. Okay, that is what we are doing here. So now you have to define here the type you want. Okay, so type dot array. So I want it to be in the form of array. As you guys can see here, this is the type I'm using. Okay, from Gemini API. Now here I'll define the description. Okay, so description is, okay, so what I want a list of three technical interview questions. Okay, you want to generate 20, you guys put 20, there is no problem. AI will generate 20 questions. Okay, the number of questions you want, you can do that. Okay, now what you want, items inside this. Okay, so each item, now I want array of objects basically. So I'll say type dot object. So I want in each type dot object. Okay, so now I want array of objects. So question and the response, that is what I want. Now what I want inside that, I want properties. What properties I want. Okay, so this is how you guys can literally restrict your Gemini API to give you response in JSON. Because if you work in web development, right, and even in mobile, you'll see majorly to transport the data between client to server, server to client, and server to servers, we majorly use JSON. In a normal, of course, use case based things could change. It could be XML, it could be any other format, right? But JSON is majorly that we use. So that's where I took example of JSON only. Okay. Now what will be the type of question? So type of question should be string. Okay, it should be string. And description should be the technical question. Okay, it should be the technical question. Okay. Then after this, the concept I want concept out of it. Okay, then I want answer out of it. I want three things. Okay, I want concept, the question. Okay, I'll say type. This is also going to be string for me, and description. Okay, I'll say core concept explanation. Okay. And lastly, I'll say ideal answer. Okay. Now I'll say ideal. Okay. Comma is missed. Okay. I hope the syntax is correct now. Ideal answer. Now, ideal answer would be also going to be a object. Okay. In which I want type. Of course, answer is obviously going to be a string only. Okay. Okay. And then I'll say description. Okay. So what I want 2 to 3 sentence framework of what perfect candidate, okay, would say. So this is how it's going to come here. Okay, so these are whatever I'm putting in description, these are like your going to be in your like a prompt only. Okay, this will be like an instruction for your Gemini. Okay, like how the ideal answer should come. Okay, so these two things will come. One second, I'll just see where is this object ending. This object is ending here. I just want to define one more thing here is outside this configuration required. Okay, so I want question should be there. Okay, out of these concept has to be there and ideal answer should be there. Okay, so these are the three things I'll say. Ideal answer. So required is means these things has to be there. Okay, just like you define a model inside your MongoDB, it's very similar to that. Okay, it's very similar to that. Okay, so these are the things we have. Okay, now after this, what we will do, we will simply say const questions array, like all the data would come as a response. Okay, so whatever response will come, I'll parse it. Okay, inside I'll convert it to JSON basically. Okay, response dot text, all the response that will come, like let's say it will come in the form of array of object. Okay, so this response I'm saying it will come. Okay, and then we will simply parse it, and after this, we are going to say response.json. We'll send it in the client response.status. See how easy it is to integrate your APIs, Gemini APIs or any other API. Okay. So in JSON, you will send your complete question array. Okay. And just in case you got any error, just in case, okay, we'll catch it here. So we'll say console.log of whatever is the error, we'll catch it, and then we'll say response.status. Okay, we'll say 500 because that is like a backend error. Okay, error, let's say failed to generate. Okay, so this is how it's going to come. Okay, this is how this part is going to come. Okay, so I'll quickly explain it again. So what we did, firstly, I wanted to do JNA. So from the client, whatever request will be made, so request will be made on this. This port number would be this on which the request will be made. Okay, when I'll do this request, what will happen? This function will be called. Okay, and of course, this call that we're doing, it's going to be asynchronous. So I'll just make it asynchronous. Okay, because this can take some time because Gemini AI can take some time. So I'm asking Gemini AI APIs. I'm passing my API key to generate this content. Once it generates the content, I'm mentioning like how the format of the data should come, what will be the content, what are the required things from this. Okay, so that is how it will come. Okay. Now after this, once this response will come, I'm just sending it to my client. Okay. But, so whenever I'll do a request, this data will go to the client. Okay. So this is what we're using, and this API key now we have to mention API key. Okay. So I'll just go here Gemini API. Okay. So you guys can go to just search for Gemini API key. I've already, created it. I'll quickly show you guys. So I already have AI key created. Okay, I'll be using that. But you guys can just come here and create a new one as well. Okay. Because if you're doing it for the first time, you will have to create. I'll copy this. Okay, I'll just paste my API key over here. Okay, so ideally my backend is created. Okay, the API is created backend. I just need to make a request, and now you see there is no pre-populated data question concept, and nothing I've kept here. Nothing. Okay, it's all coming. So let's see. Is there so if there is any issue, you can see my backend is still running. So there is no issue. Backend is still running. Also, before you integrate it with the client, just in case you want to test this API, you can go to Postman and test it as well. Okay, so for now, since I'm covering backend also, front end also, I'll be doing it in the client itself. Okay, I'll just run my client server also. So client server code is just a bit pre-structured. Okay, backend I've written completely because I didn't wanted to put too much time on the tailwind part, the CSS part. Okay, so that's the only reason. But I'll quickly walk you through what I've added here. So in front end part, I just installed. So it's all React I've installed. Just Tailwind CSS is the additional thing I've installed. That's it. Okay. So Tailwind, and we know the drill for how to do configuration for Tailwind. You just need to make changes here. You have to include Tailwind here. Okay. And inside index.css file, you have to include this line of Tailwind. Okay, then you're good to go with using Tailwind CSS. Okay, so now we will be working with the same component. So there is a header I've created. There's a form where user will enter the data like text tag and the role, and error handling I've done. Okay, so here from here we'll be writing the code to do an API call. So let me run this. So to run this, okay, it will be running on 5173 like I said, and my backend is running on 5000. Okay, so just the CSS part I've done, but the main integration I'll be doing right in front of you guys. Okay, so you can see, so this is target role, that is this input role, and there's a text tag. So just for the sake of uniformity, I've kept the same name of role and text tag here also and here also. Okay, so that there is no confusion for you guys. So role and text tag and the question. So these are the three things I've created here as a state variable. And to the two things, loading and error. Of course, this loading and error is for our during API call. It is going to help me out. Okay, and this is the header part where I've added this heading and a p tag. I'll show you guys. Okay, just a simple header, just a heading and a paragraph tag. Okay, with some CSS. Then there is a form where user will enter the data. So you can see there are two divs inside this. Okay, three divs. One is for target role, one is for text tag, and one is for generate. Okay, so three things are there. Okay, once I submit this form, then I'll be doing an API call, and then we'll be generating. And just in case we get any error, just in case, we'll say make sure your backend server is running. Okay, so that is where I've handled this part. Okay, and here we'll be displaying our API response. So whatever Gemini API will generate, whatever I'll get from my API, okay, I'll be putting it here. Response. So now let's do an API call. So when the API call should happen when this form is submitted. Okay. So simply I'll say on submit event is equal to, let's say, generate interview questions. Okay. So I'll copy this. I'll create a function over here. Okay. So this function should be called, and here we will simply writing the code to call this API. Okay. Once this API will give me the data, API call will do. Okay. So now, real time, let's say, if I'm doing this API call, right? This API is already hosted on some server like JSON, this data, JSON placeholder. But our API is not hosted, it's running on localhost 5000, right? So I have to use localhost 5000 for running my API, okay, for executing this. So here I will simply come. So we'll get event object here. I'll say e dot prevent default. Okay. Now here I'll say, so since we are doing a right way of doing an API call like set loading and set error, so I'll just set those initially only. So I will set those as null initially, and that is true. Like loading means that API call is happening. Okay. Set questions, so I'll keep it empty. Okay. So this is how it will come. Okay. Now after this, next thing that we're going to do is try and catch. Okay, and of course it's an API call, so we'll make it asynchronous because we'll be doing API call here. Okay. And for doing an API call, I can use Axios also and fetch also. Okay, so I'll be using fetch response. Okay, now in fetch we have to pass our API. So now just see what will be our API. My server is running on localhost 5000, right? Port number. So I will say HTTP colon. Of course, if you are hosting it somewhere, then you can put that. Okay, I'll say local host colon 5000. Okay, slash what was my API. So API was this. This is the API I created for the post request. Okay, so I'll copy this API, paste it here. Okay, and that's it. This is my API that we created, and it will expect what? It will expect a post request. So I'll pass an object here. I'll say method is post. I have to do post request. If there's any header information, you guys can pass. Okay, like for example, the content type. So content type would be JSON. Any meta information through headers we can send. Okay, and then body. Okay, and this is what I was talking about. These two inputs will come from the user, JSON dot stringify. Okay, now I'll pass the object here, role comma text tag. Okay, now this role text tag is this input. Okay, the role and the text tag, and how you are storing, we are just doing a on change event here. I'll show you. You can see I'm setting the role, I'm setting the text tag where in my state variable. So obviously this will be my latest data. Okay, so now you can see, and this is exactly what you're sending from the client is what you're receiving here as response in the request in the body. So this body is actually this. Okay, and once this request is made, okay, once this request is made, we'll get the response. Okay, so we'll simply say if, one second, yeah, we'll say if the response dot, okay, if the response has not come properly, okay, then I'm going to say throw new error. Okay, error, let's say fail to fetch. Okay, fail to fetch, it can fail also, right? Fail to fetch, otherwise we'll get the response. Okay, we'll simply say otherwise const whatever data we'll get here. Okay, we'll say await response dot json. Okay, and we will simply set it in our questions. Okay, let's say data, and if we will get any error, I'll say error, and I'll say console.log of, or since we are already setting the error, so we'll say set error. I'll say error dot message. And lastly, finally, one second, I'm just fixing the brackets issue. Yeah, finally block. Okay, for finally block, we know for set loading false. Like the once the API, maybe it is a correct API call or it's a failed API call. Once it is done, we just need to set it to false, set loading as false. Okay, so now what will happen? User will enter all the data, text tag, okay, the role, and then click on submit button. Click submit event will fire. This function will be called. Then we are just doing an API call. This API call, which we only created, all the Gemini data and everything will come. If there is a response, okay, we'll set it, okay, otherwise we'll get the error. And once we'll get this response, okay, once we'll get this response, we just need to display it in UI. Okay, so before I go and display it in UI, let me just console this data, and if the data comes here, the last part left is the display part. Okay, so before I go there, quickly we'll try this API today. Let's see if it's working now. All the servers are running. Okay, also let's try it for front end role only. I'll open it side by side to check if it's working. I'll click on generate. Okay, we got some error. Okay, so we are getting some error. Okay, so I'm getting this part. Okay, that means some error issue is here. Okay, we got an error here in my backend. W. W welcome JSON dot parse. Expected token welcome is not a valid JSON. Okay, so issue is in my backend. JSON. Okay, let me console this. So let's see if you're getting the data here or not. Okay, let me try it again. So see, we are getting this data over here. Okay, so backend we are getting the data. You guys can see the response is coming correctly. So you guys can see this is how Gemini is giving me the response. But it's not converting. That's the issue. It's not parsing this data properly. Okay, let me try this once more. Okay, but we are able to do that. Let me try it once again. Uh, why we are not getting it in JSON format? Okay, so JSON dot parse. Just a moment, guys. I'm just trying to understand where is the issue. So this response, we are just sending it here. Then we are sending it here. But then why we are not getting it to the client? Response.json questions array. Okay, that is something we are generating over here. So text part I'm getting, but this is not passed. Response.text. Okay, let me do one thing. Let me do one thing just to save our time. Instead of sending this, okay, I'll send this. So like I know ideally it should be JSON format, but I don't know why it's not parsing right now. Okay, something could be missed, but I think written it correctly only. I'll do one thing. I'll just send it as questions. Okay, colon response.text. Okay, so whatever response we're getting, okay, but like I'll just see if I can parse it on the client side. Okay. So that is what we're doing, response.json, and I'll send an object. That is what I'm sending from here, and we will get it as a data there. Okay, so let's try this. At least we'll get a response in the client, even if it's a text format. Okay, API call is not at all happening. Okay, let me check. API is correct method, then we are sending content type as JSON. JSON dot stringify, we are sending these two things. Then we are throwing error if there is not a correct response. Otherwise, we are waiting for this data. Five seconds. Okay, guys, just a moment. Okay, just to save our time. I have kept my server code over here. I'll just quickly check the code from here. Okay, if there is anything that I missed. Okay, I'll just copy from here. It's the same code as such. There is nothing different, but I just want to be sure. Okay, so I'm just trying it out. Maybe while writing, I messed up some spelling. That could happen. But it's the same code that I had written. Okay, it's the same code here. Okay, let's try this one once. Okay, this is fine. Now let's see if it's working. I just the P structure code that I had. I just paste that. No, this is also not okay. So API is this now. I'll copy this. Okay, this is my API. Okay, I think the issue was from the client. Let's see. I just copied that code. Okay, let me console the data also. If this worked fine, that means I think I messed up something in my client only. The server was anyways was right. So my backend is running. I'll generate. Okay, finally, I'm getting the response. Okay, so now I'll just undo my this backend. Okay, because the code that I had written in this complete live, I'll keep that code only. Okay, and issue must be with my client. So whatever API call I did, I must have messed up some because this is the only thing I changed in my client, right? So I must have messed up something in my client. So I'll refresh and check it again. Okay, I just did undo with my this data. I'll refresh, I'll run this, click on generate. Okay, and okay, So I'll show you guys again. So it's working now. Okay, I'll refresh. So you can see, let's change this to backend role. Okay. And I'll say Node.js. Okay. And I'll get three questions there, which is generated from Gemini API. Okay. Okay, no, something is API. Okay, sorry. API I changed. One second. API. Actually, the API that you guys will get in the document and the API that I'm using here, the one we have created, the naming is different. Anyways, guys, this type of fuck ups happen in development sometimes. So let's see. I don't know why it's failing now. Did I miss? Okay, something I missed again. Spelling. Okay. Okay, let me just rerun it. No, we are getting some error now. One second. I'll just what can I do? I can just copy this part again. Okay, let me rerun my server once. I'll refresh my client and I'll click on generate. Now what has happened? It's getting 404. I hope it works this time. No, still not. Just a moment. I'll check. API key, I hope is working fine. So we are on. So we did this. Then we did the API call. We're sending the response. Why is it failing? Okay. Let me just console. Maybe Gemini API is not working. Maybe my issue is with my API key. That could be the case. Okay, so I'll just check the response because just before this it was working and now it's not. So maybe the issue is Gemini. Then I won't be able to do anything in that part. Let me. Uh, I'm not able to find what's the issue in the API. Maybe issue is with API, but I don't think so. API is. I mean, it was working fine right now, and now it's not. What changed in that? So we were getting three questions in between, right? Now we are not getting those. I'm just checking my code again, okay? Uh, or I'll copy this again. Okay, I'm just trying it for the last time. Okay, otherwise we'll wrap in. I'll be fixing this code before pushing. Okay, before pushing it to GitHub, I'll fix this code. But again, I just need to check it once. So our try block is here. No, still there is an issue. No, I really think that the issue is with the API key that I'm using. Okay. Let me try generating a new quickly. Let's try that part as well. I'll create a new API key because I've used this API key couple of times earlier. Okay. So maybe that's why I thought let me just try one last time. Okay. Otherwise, I'll see. Okay. I'll rerun my server. So at least if there is any issue with the API key, we can go with that. Because I'm using all the free models, okay? I'm not using any paid thing. No, issue is not with that. Okay, what I'll do, guys, I'll just push this code after fixing it. But probably whatever the code I had written today, okay, I'll just do Control Z, okay, so that I post the same code that I had written today. So it is actually the correct code that I had written today, okay. I think some spelling mistake or like some one or two thing I might have missed while writing this code. That could happen, okay, for sure. But I hope you guys got the idea. This is how APIs are integrated in terms of AI APIs, right? And this is how you integrate those in a backend. Like you integrate in your backend, and then of course once we get this response in the form of questions, the only part would be the display part. Okay, so here you can just display those questions, and then you can just like display it in a fancy format using table and CSS. Okay, so that is what we can do. Right now we are getting this backend issue. Like of course some issue is there with my backend. Maybe I'll just check it. Okay, and before pushing it to GitHub, I'll fix it. Okay, and probably we'll have another YouTube live next week. Okay, but I hope you guys got the clarity. Okay, just in case you get any doubt, feel free to put it in the comment section. Okay, and I hope how to generate the API key, how these, firstly you create your own APIs like these, okay, from the client. From the backend, you'll develop your own APIs, and inside those APIs, you call this packages of Gen AI or Google, or you can use OpenAI also, Grok API here also. Okay, and when you do an API call, all the response and everything comes from here. Okay, once this response comes, then you send it to the client in whichever format you want, JSON, image, video, anything you want to generate, you can do it. Okay, I'll show you guys one example. So if, in fact, if you want to generate image, you have a different code for that. And this code that I've written here, it's all coming from documentation. It's not like it's not something I had, written it from scratch. It's all coming from this. So I'm using this Gemini 3.5, right? So if you go here, you will see all these models and see this is the code. Okay, this is what I was using here. So you guys can also use it. Okay, so I'm using all this code from here only. Okay, you can see model, content, configuration, the type of data you want. Okay, and you get it in the form of text. And I was just parsing it and converting it to JSON, which I think the main issue there where my code is not working fine is actually this JSON thing only. Okay, something is messed up here, but I'll fix it before I push it to the GitHub. Okay, and if you want to get access to this code and the document, okay, this document, you can just join the WhatsApp community and there you will get the code. Okay, sure. I think we can call it for the day. All right. Thank you guys. We'll connect in next live. Okay. Sure. Bye. Good night.